So hi.
Hi.
To start off with, would you like to just say your name and where you are?
Yeah, I'm Kirti, and right now I am in Kitchener, Ontario. Right now I'm sitting in my office. It's evening here, and I'm just enjoying being with you.
Nice. Well, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate this. This is one of those like semi-blind dates. It's like one of those people who I'd met a little bit but was curious about. So I'm glad that you decided to do this.
Yeah.
The first question that we have for you actually is, who are you? Who are you as a person? And that can be maybe about some of your interests, your passions, your values. Just who are you as a human being?
That's an interesting one.
It's a good way to get to know someone, we found.
Yeah. So, and this is a very interesting one as well because of like the work I do. This is a very central piece of who I am. And I personally feel like I keep engaging with the question of who I am. And I never really find one answer. And so to me, it seems like, it's a constant battle between being and becoming. And right now, so let me share with you where I am these days. So professionally, I work as a Gestalt coach. And I am in beginning of my career as a coach. From last 3 to 4 years, I have been coaching. I moved to Canada 2 years ago and started my business here. And so as a businesswoman, I'm still new. As a Gestalt coach, I feel I'm experienced. As a Gestalt person, I was introduced to Gestalt almost 10, 12 years ago. So that is where I feel like that feels like home in terms of my work. And personally, I recently became a mom that I was sharing with you. So I have a 6-month-old. So that's a really big figure for me these days. Being a mom and how to be in relation with him and how to still take out some time to myself. And so that's where I am these days.
Okay. Okay. And I'm curious about, I mean, I know very little about your history, so this might be an interesting one. What event or circumstance in your life would you say has shaped who you are?
So that's obvious. We all know that there are many. And so the question means that the significant one. That's what I'm understanding. Even the significant ones are many. So one of the piece of my, of being who I am these days is that I was born in India. And around when I was, since 2012, I have moved to almost 7 cities. And that has really shaped me. So it's not a single event, but this me, traveling through these places in different roles. So first 4 cities I traveled in southern part of India. And being a banker, I was working in I was in the banking industry for a while. And I was sent to a rural place, an urban place, a semi-urban place. And my interactions were very different. So that started shaping me. And because I always, when I went into banking industry, before that, I already had my undergraduation in psychology. So I already had that interest and I was already introduced to Gestalt. So going there, I had many interactions which just amazed me. I made some friends with whom we don't share the language, but we were friends. We used to communicate. And so that started shaping my life, and that has always, so the biggest shift it brought in me was, before that I always used to live my life with certainty and knowing where I'm headed. I was one of those, people who make 5-year plans, 10-year plans.
Are you the coach anymore?
And then I realized that the best idea is to really embrace where I am and what more can happen. And so I think me taking my, so that's why it seems significant of just moving.
Right.
Right.
Hmm. Okay. Well, another question is, what other person, and I'm sure, again, there are many, we are relational beings, but what other person in your life would you say has had the most impact on who you are?
Hmm. So is it okay if I name 4 people or
Sure.
just one?
No.
Okay. So, um, so personally, it's my husband. He has, impacted me the most because it is in relation with him that I started feeling seen and heard. So that is one person that I want to name. Apart from that, in terms of my professional journey, there have been, you know, like throughout the journey, like as we know, we keep meeting people, we keep learning from them, they keep shaping us and where we are headed, where we actually land. But there were some 3 major, interactions that I would like to share. So first was my professor while I was doing my psychology honors. Her name is Surbika Maheshwari, and she used to teach us systems and theories and counseling. And it was because of him, the way she used to teach or even just interact, that got me interested in pursuing it further. That kind of made me understand the value of being a therapist, being a coach. She had a really big influence. Then the second person is Kailash Tuli. He is the person who introduced me to Gestalt. So he was invited for a 1-day workshop. And that was when I was like, wow, this makes sense. Because it was my 3rd year in psychology and we were being introduced to different theories. And I was like, yes, I like that, but something is missing. Yes, psychoanalysis, yeah, good, something is missing. And then when I experienced, when I attended that workshop, I was like, this is amazing. This is what it is. And
I
yeah,
can't tell you how many people have answered with like, my life changed in a 1-day introductory workshop. It's incredible.
yeah. And so that was him.
Hmm.
And so he became more of a mentor. And then there is another person. My interaction with her was, not for that long a duration. So her name is Shalja Sen. She was offering a course in family therapy, and I enrolled in the course. At that time, I was still figuring out. So it was way back in 2010. And she's another person. The way she carries herself, her presence, and because of where I was in my personal life, she was what I needed at that time. And I was just attending her course. We used to meet every weekend, and but the way she used to carry herself, her presence, that was very, that had a really big impact.
So, how did you then come into Gestalt? How would you say you got more involved?
So, going back to that 1-day workshop that I already mentioned, after that, I was very interested in learning more. And one of the challenge was that, and that still is for many students, is that there are no Gestalt institutes in India.
I was going to ask, where was it?
Yeah, so that workshop was like Professor Kailash Tuli was invited in our college for a one-day workshop.
Okay.
For psychology students. So that's how I got introduced to it. But then I reached out to him after that year. After finishing my graduation, I'm like, I want to learn more. And he's like, he was the only resource person, but he is amazing as he is. So he was like, he could see my interest. And he's like, how about we create a group? And so I took leadership in asking my friends, colleagues at that point of time if you're interested in learning more about Gestalt therapy. And 12 of us showed interest.
Wow.
We rented a room with support of each other. We rented a room, and Kailash Tuli sir offered us short course in Gestalt. So that took me a step further in understanding Gestalt. And then second piece, because I was all, and he keeps, because he also offers workshops on this basis. So there is no institute, but he's usually invited for a one-day workshop or a four-day workshop. So whenever he used to go, he used to kind of tell me as well. So I used to go and attend those workshops as well. So that's how I was learning bits and pieces. And I used to read few books. I don't read many books, but yes, I was always reading Gestalt books. So I was reading posters. So that's how I was learning. So for me, when I came to US in 2015, I was like, now I have the opportunity to really study more. And that's when I enrolled in Gestalt Institute of Cleveland for their Gestalt coaching program.
Mm.
So that was my another piece of training. And then in terms of training, if I talk, then when I moved to Canada 2 years ago, I I love Gestalt, and you would resonate with that. So I feel like I always want to, continue learning. So last year I did process group facilitation program from Gestalt Institute of Toronto.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's about my journey in terms of my training. And
And what is your favorite part? Like, what is it about Gestalt that you are just so fascinated by that you like follow it to different countries?
so for me, it's relationality.
Okay.
And actually, like so many things I love about it. But if I have to just, talk about one, then I'll talk about relationality, because that I thou that it has, and that's what, like I was telling you that, with every school of thought, I was like, yes, it makes sense, but something is missing. What was missing was I thou, because I always had this, I can say tension, or like, conflict with that attitude that I am an expert and I can tell you what's wrong with you. And that's why I didn't pursue counseling psychology. That's why I didn't pursue organizational side of becoming an HR.
Right.
And that's why I love Gestalt, because it is the space which allows for I thou. It is, we give a lot of importance to process. And that's what I love about it. It's honoring the other.
Hmm. Okay. Well, this question is maybe a little bit more personal again. And it's not something that is interesting or relevant to everyone to answer. So I will ask it, and if you're not interested, that's fine. It's a question about how do you live yourself as a woman, or how do you experience your gender? And has your Gestalt process had anything to do with that?
I'm kind of sitting with the question. Hmm. Will you repeat it as well?
Yeah, just how you
Yeah,
experience yourself as a woman or your gender,
yeah,
um, and
yeah.
whether Gestalt has helped you or shaped that in any way.
Sure. Yeah. I wanted to hear it again to
Mhm.
really understand what I am experiencing and to share that. So for me, so what Gestalt has helped me do is that it helped me, like I was sharing earlier, that we usually have this tendency to see things as fixed and that this is this. And then Gestalt has helped me question introjects.
Ah, very useful skill.
Yeah. Yeah. So for the piece about being a woman, of all the introjects that I would have carried, no, some of them keeps coming in my awareness. Some of them are still I'm not aware of. And then because now I can see them as an introject and I can question them, that has helped me grow as who I am today. And so that's how I feel like Gestalt has interacted that piece.
Mhm.
Yeah, because like I can share some example of like how I am going about my life these days. So I um, I have a very amazing partner who honors that in me, uh, and many a times. So we in our house we are always very much that we have equality. At the same time, I notice that within myself, I'll keep going back to some of the introjects. So, oh, if the dinner is not ready, it's somehow I have to feel bad.
Oh,
Whereas we decided that today he is making. Or if he's making, I suddenly am feeling like, oh, today he's making, let me make it tomorrow. So in small pieces, it keeps coming up. And then you realize, hey, today he's free. It's his off day. He loves cooking. He enjoys it, but still that piece comes in me. And then I notice it, I'm like, that's an introject about what I am supposed to be as a woman. And then I
mhm.
sit in awareness with that, and then I notice it ease off. And so, yeah, this is how Gestalt helps me go back to who I am and who I can be. And even in everyday relationship, it helps as to how we talk about things.
I imagine that moving cultures, I mean, I'm thinking of my own experience and what we were saying about difference, just noticing difference and experiencing myself as different from where I am and saying, I don't think I can do this. I don't think I can be here. I wonder if that's part of it as well. I mean, immigration is not easy. I,
Yeah,
my own
yeah,
immigration experience was different, but I mean, just having different references and all of a sudden finding myself in a place where my introjects don't make sense. I mean, some are pretty universal, but some of them at the same
yeah.
time, it's like, even if I act on my introjects, now I'm in a place where women do different things. And even my introjects are out of place. And that's really confusing.
Yeah. So there
Yeah.
is, yeah. So because I was talking about the piece of being a woman, but yes, the piece of interacting with different cultures, the piece of being in this era that we have, the piece of, so these different pieces also keep shaping my experience as a woman. Yeah.
Mhm. Yes, and if you asked me who I was as a woman 6 months after having my first child, I would probably also just kind of go, I don't know anymore.
Yeah.
It changes. And my experience, it was a lot to digest as well. I don't know.
Yeah. The
But
piece of, yeah, becoming a mom. And now I always keep going back to, so Gestalt helps me being a mom as well. That's what I'm experiencing, that it helps me allow myself that balance of being with my child at the same time, taking space to come back to have some personal space for myself as well. Like that continuous dance of self and other, especially with your child and with child, because his identity was fused with mine for a long while. Like I felt like my identity, initial 2, 3 months, I was like, this is me. And then gradually you see him grow and you're like, okay, now he wants half an hour there, 1 hour there, and so so learning to balance that. So Gestalt helps me there as well. Yeah.
Yeah. It's that famous, is it the fourth trimester where they're outside but they're still really there? Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Fourth
didn't know
semester,
about
yeah.
that until I was like, somebody should have told me. I really would have liked to know about this before it happened.
Yeah. Because this person is always there with you. Yeah.
Mhm. But it's just another relationship, right? Another significant relationship.
Yeah.
Hmm. Okay. Well, I'm wondering within Gestalt, and I mean, maybe as a student, maybe as a coach, maybe as a therapist or whatever, what would you say has been one of the greatest challenges that you've run into?
Explaining Gestalt. And you're like, it's experiential. And you're like, oh. So the challenge of communicating something which comes through experience is the biggest challenge. And because the term also Gestalt, it sounds foreign to everyone because it's a German word. So those who haven't really heard about Gestalt, they don't nothing about Gestalt. So to kind of explain it to them is one of the challenge. And being a coach, because being Gestalt coach is very rare because there are very few institutes who offer Gestalt coaching. So in coaching community, um, talking about what exactly you're trained in, it because the term in itself doesn't explain much.
Right.
Gestalt coaching, you're like, okay, what is that? It's the challenge of communicating something which is experiential.
Right. I think maybe that comes down to presence, though, right? Because that's what you said about the people who really influenced you. And maybe it's more about how you are than what you say.
True. Yeah, so the challenge is usually about as to like, so a very practical challenge is while making your website or while making writing your resume, you're like how to really explain your process. So yes, so that has been a challenge as to find the right words, find right language so that it is landing correctly to the other person, so that they are able to understand what you're really saying rather than people confusing it with just mindfulness or something else
Right.
or something else. I don't know what all, depending upon what they are aware of, they start making connections, but to find the right language to really explain it for what it really is the challenge.
Yes,
It
it
feels
is.
like the language reduces
Yes.
the
Yeah.
experience. Yeah.
And you said right now, you said coaching community. So I'm wondering if there is another concept in your experience of Gestalt community. Does that exist for you? Does that mean anything for you?
Gestalt community.
Gestalt community.
Yeah. So for me, Gestalt community is more about, so for me, I'm a member of AAGT, and that's where I'm, I don't really interact. I'm still not very, I feel like I'm a newbie in term, in terms of my relationship with AAGT. So I kind of notice myself hold back before really reaching out or really putting my voice out there in general meetings or in the bigger community of AAGT. But within AAGT, there are certain groups, like there is POC, People of Color Group. I attend those meetings. Sometimes I have attended Research Interest Group. And that's where that smaller community, that smaller groups, that's where I feel like, I belong here. And also there is another community which is continuing with me for me. is when I was at Cleveland Institute, there we were divided into smaller subgroups of D&M groups as well. So there, it's a group of 4 individuals, and they are very close to me. So we keep meeting every month uh, via video call, and so that's also a Gestalt community for me.
Hmm, that's exciting. 4 people as a community. That sounds.
Yeah, 4 people as a community, and so they too, yeah, because that's it gives that sense of community and belonging. Yeah.
Mhm.
So because one of them is in New York, 2 of them are in Cleveland, I'm here, and it's been 3 years, but we are still in contact. In not only just that, I'm also in contact with them one-on-one, but we also come back to having that group call. So that gives it a sense of community.
Mhm. No, and I'm not doubting it. I actually
Yeah,
really
yeah.
think
No, that's what
four
I found it.
people. Yeah,
Yeah.
4 people is enough for a community. So that's encouraging, I guess. It
Yeah.
doesn't have to be like a 500-person event. Like that's
Yeah. Yeah. When you said it, I also realized the power of it. That's why I'm like, yeah, isn't it
enough.
interesting? Yeah.
Yeah.
It feels like community.
So I'm curious what you would say that Gestalt in particular has given you as a person.
Okay. It's a
Now
big
it's
one.
given you a 4-person community, but what else has it given you?
It has, to me, it seems like it, the very, like I was sharing that how it really impacted me is because it could speak to some of the values that I was carrying. So it has given me space and language to be what I always wanted to be without feeling like what I'm talking is just gibberish and it's not making sense to anyone. Yeah.
Hmm, that sounds very nice. And I guess this is probably, it's almost the last question that I would ask, would be what is your greatest memory, or would you say is like a highlight of your experience within Gestalt? One of those moments or experiences that really impacted you?
So yeah, again, there are many which are coming up. So the first workshop to, my experiences at Cleveland Institute, at Toronto Institute, but a recent one where I met you also was AAGT Toronto.
Mm-hmm.
And I think if I have to talk about one, uh, I think my experience at AAGT Toronto, to be there, it just felt like it was a different air you're breathing in. For me, that was my experience. I don't know whether I know that yes, something was different there, that it was a community of Gestalt therapists, coaches, other professionals. And also my knowing that these people have some relationship with Gestalt. I was feeling like I belong here. There was this different sense of being that I was experiencing being there. I was just happy and I was just meeting everyone. I met so many amazing people, including you. And I had very many exchanges. Like within, I met some people, we interacted for 5 minutes or 15 minutes, but it felt like the contact happened. It felt like I met someone, I saw someone,
Mm-hmm.
rather than feeling like we're just rushing through. So to have that continuous experience over those 3 days, 4 days makes it very significant. I was just enjoying myself being there.
It kind of sounds like that thing that they talk about, like full presence, like real, authentic, just really being there.
Yeah. and in that also there were experiences in which you're engaging with different aspects of being, and because the theme itself was radical respect, and there were some very difficult conversations as well, and I was coming in contact with those figures as well. Yet a major figure still was that I was feeling connected and present.
Hmm. Oh, that's exciting. Well, the last question that I have then is, what's next? What would you like to do with yourself, with your practice, and whether you have any thoughts about where you would like to see Gestalt in the future?
So that is a piece that I keep, actively engaging with. So for me, like I was sharing that for me, when I was in India, I realized that there are no Gestalt institutes. And I know that even till date, it's not there. And if things continue this way for many years, it might not happen. So I would like Gestalt to reach there. And it's not like it's not there. It's taught to therapists, psychologists, but it is being taught by individuals who themselves have just read it,
Okay.
not experienced it. Because it's being taught by people who are CBT professionals or psychoanalysts, and it is their understanding of Gestalt. But as such, there are no Gestalt Institute. So that full engaging with Gestalt, that engagement is not there. So that is one piece that I would like to see happen. And that has motivated me to be part of regional committee as well, as to how can we, find creative ways to make something happen. Because I know that is, and it's not just, so when I say this, it's not that I want Gestalt to reach there because, I am trained in it and I, etc. But mainly because of the value that it has to offer. Because I know the importance of its what it has to offer. And I also come in contact with many professionals, many of my friends who are now working as therapists, when they talk about that the lack of some of their skills. And I'm like, you would benefit from this. And then coming in contact with, but there are no workshops happening there.
Mm-hmm.
So understanding that I know that there is a need and it's not there. So I would like Gestalt to reach there.
Hmm. That sounds like an interesting project.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, is there anything that you would like to add at this point?
I think nothing as such about the interview, but I'm really enjoying this
Yes, it's nice. This is the
connection of
continuation
meeting
of
you.
having lunch together at the
Yeah.
registration table. That was,
And
yeah.
yeah, and that is, and as I say this, it's again the reminder of, what we are talking about, that I'm meeting you today after a long time, and then suddenly it felt like, oh, we are here and I know you and I'm comfortable. So
Mhm.
yeah, and I am, yeah, so another piece, if I may add, is I really, the idea of Gestalt is too good to be limited to therapy room. I believe that. And that's why Gestalt coaching is another way of me taking it out there. Yet, so that's where I, keep engaging with creative ways of taking it there. Not necessarily everything has to be said that it's Gestalt, but it's about carrying those values. We need to go into different systems because it's needed.
Mhm.
So that's what I would like to add. And because this project, which you started, my first reaction was, wow, this is another example of being creative.
Yeah.
And
But it's like we said, you know, it comes from a need. It comes from a need for something. And if I admit that I have this need to contact people and to learn more about people and to ask fairly invasive personal questions about people, it's just because I'm really curious. And it's not always, you know, the existing appropriate spaces to do that. So I'll find a way. And
Yeah, and what I'm saying is that the need is within us, and sometimes when we kind of respond to that, we realize that sometimes the system also needed it, and that's how I experienced when you started this. I was like, yeah, it was needed.
well, good. I'm so glad. Thank you. I appreciate that. And I appreciate meeting you again. So if it's okay with you, we'll stop it here for now.
Yeah,
Okay,
thank you.
thanks.